Right, so I thought we reached top gaming phone status after I reviewed the Redmagic 7. Until I found out about the Pro version around a month or so ago. But looking at the specs on paper, I got a little confused on how this is the Pro version over the standard. Anyways, this phone is either completely unnecessary or a very necessary step in pushing certain hardware specs to the bleeding edge of mobile tech. Now, looking at the back, it shares a similar aesthetic design to the standard 7 with that aluminum band running down the middle. But on the standard 7, it's actually sitting under the glass, whereas on the Pro, it's sitting on top. So, maybe this is an attempt at furthering its cooling system by turning it into some sort of heatsink? The camera orientation on the Pro is also different, with them sitting in a square module instead of as a strip running down the middle. And we also get that cool transparent back showing us some of the gold-colored brass screws, exposed cooling fan, and some writing listing some of the phone's specs. What's kind of funny though is if you look at where it says air inlet, the little arrow is just pointing to the aluminum band, like if they had just moved the arrow over the word inlet. It's a hefty boy, coming in at 235 grams compared to the 215 grams on the standard 7, but it's actually a couple millimeters smaller in almost all dimensions except for the thickness, likely due to the bigger battery. And so we get these thicker sides, which some of you might actually prefer. I know I do, because it affords a little more hand purchase when you're not only holding it like you normally would, but also when gaming. The display on the Pro is, in my honest opinion, a little disappointing for a Pro version of an already crazy spec device. Right, so get this, the standard and the Pro both have 6.8-inch Full HD Plus AMOLED displays that truly do look great. But the standard 7 has 165 Hz refresh rate with a max brightness at 700 nits. The Pro is limited to 120 Hz refresh with a 600 nits max brightness. However, the standard 7 only has a 720 Hz touch sampling rate compared to the 960 on the Pro. Now, I keep saying only like 120 Hz refresh or 720 Hz touch sampling rate is piss poor or something, but keep in mind, I'm comparing two insane gaming phones from the same brand against each other and simply trying to point out that the more expensive phone's display is actually inferior to the more affordable version. Because here's the thing, the 720 Hz touch sampling rate on the standard 7 is still completely bonkers on a phone. You will not, I repeat, you will not be able to ever tell the difference between 960 Hz and 720 Hz touch sampling without some sort of expensive scientific calibration tool. Now, one theory I read about why the refresh rate and max brightness is lower on the Pro is because of the under-display selfie camera. Something about a higher refresh rate and higher brightness can cause some sort of technical incompatibility. I have no clue about any of that, but one thing's for sure, games and content are a little more focused without a black dot in the middle or corner of my screen, but more on that selfie camera later. Anyways, even with a similar but still slightly different display, the in-display fingerprint reader is still lightning fast, hell, maybe even a little faster. And of course, it's still in an easily reachable location. Now, the stereo speaker sound length got quite a bit louder than the standard 7 and a little fuller, probably because it's a thicker boy, so audio resonates a bit better. They won't win any awards, but sound more than fine enough for gaming and everything else, but there's also a headphone jack, so if you wanted to use that instead, you could. Now, obviously the software experience is going to be exactly the same on the Pro as it is with the standard 7, with all of its settings, customizations, and surprisingly unbloated app drawer. And so the sort of day-to-day performance is going to be exactly the same. But when we get into the performance-related hardware specs between the two phones, which ultimately dictates your gaming performance, things get a bit curious. Like, both versions come with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, but the standard 7 comes with up to a completely unnecessary 18 gigs of RAM if you wanted, except the highest capacity internal storage option only goes up to 256 gigabytes. But then the Pro is capped out at 16 gigs of RAM, but has a 512 gig storage option, so less RAM but more storage on the Pro. Like, that's kind of weird, right? I mean, I'm not crazy, am I? Now, benchmarking with 3D Mark's Wildlife Extreme stress test, again with the fan setting at max, its best loop score turned out only 14 points higher than the standard 7's best loop score, but at a cost of 2.7% of its stability score versus the standard 7 and a 3-degree increase in its lowest running temperature. So basically, the same score as the standard 7, but at the cost of more heat and slightly less stability. I mean, the difference is pretty much insignificant, but still, This is the Pro version. And quite frankly, game performance between the two phones is like indistinguishable if there is a difference. Like I'm still maintaining 60 FPS in Apex Legends and Call of Duty Mobile and 120 FPS in Modern Combat Versus for as long as I want to keep playing. Like it never overheats or performance throttles. Anyways, like the standard 7, we still get all the Redmagic game space in-game menu settings and options, nothing new for the Pro, but I found the shoulder triggers quite a bit easier to use with that slightly thicker frame compared to the standard 7. Better grip, I guess, but yeah, they feel nicer to use on the Pro. So it's still an incredibly powerful gaming phone and does what it's built to do, and does it very well. So the rear cameras are the exact same that come with the standard 7. So I'm just gonna roll some photos I took with the standard 7 in case you haven't seen my review of that device, but I haven't been impressed with the photos from these gaming phones. Now, unfortunately, the front-facing camera kind of follows suit with the rear cameras, even though we've got a 16 megapixel camera on the Pro versus the 8 megapixel in the standard 7, and the reason is simple. It's an under-display camera, which is still super new tech and still quite unpolished, so it needs a higher resolution sensor to artificially crisp things up a bit. I mean, let's be honest, you're not buying a gaming phone to be an Instagram model or win any photography awards, so you know what you're getting before you open the box. Right, now, battery life with the Pro's larger 5000 mAh battery gives me about 6.5 hours with normal usage at 90 Hz and 50% brightness, which is on par with the standard 7's 5.5 hours, and the Pro gets about 2.5 hours gaming at 120 Hz, which is also on par with the standard 7's hour and 20 minutes. So we'll call it like an extra hour of battery all around, but again, we get that 65 watt charger in the box, which will charge the phone from 0 to 100 in about 30 minutes. That's pretty sweet. So personally, I think the standard 7 is not only a better value, but in several ways a better phone. Now, with the Pro, you do get a bigger battery, a cleaner display with an under-display camera, and that 512 gig storage option. But for $270 more than the standard 7, I'm not sure any of that is worth the extra cost. But let me know what you think in the comments, because that's gonna do it for this one. Don't forget to subscribe to catch more phone reviews from me soon. But thanks as always for watching, and I'll talk to you all in the next one. Cheers.